Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Covenant Custom. Today I'm going to be walking you through a very simple maintenance on the Creality K1 machine. This is going to be outfitted with the Bootycall Jones linear rail gantry, but if you're in factory configuration, stick around because a lot of this stuff still applies. This machine specifically I've neglected for a good period of time just so I could put a video like this together. Taking a look inside the chamber, there's a bunch of scrap material on the bottom. There is excessive lubrication on the lead screws and Z-rods, which has become contaminated, and the off-gassing from the materials I print has caused the front glass to go cloudy. Jumping right into machine inspection, I'll see that the belts on this specific printer look good, whereas my K1 Max is gouging in the lower belt, which is indicative of an underlying issue, but it has deposited debris, which is easy to see here. Not to worry, I've got an exciting project coming up for this machine. Now moving back to the maintenance machine, I'm going to turn the motors off so I have free range of movement over the motion system to test for binding or resistance. That did appear good, whereas my K1 Max is starting to deposit the graphite bearings on the linear rods, and it is causing the resistance I'm looking to avoid. For something like this, I would use isopropyl alcohol and clean off the rods so that it has better range of motion. If it had a linear rail in it, it probably wouldn't be experiencing the same. Hint hint. But looking at the print head cover, you'll see that it's melted, the heat sock's damaged, and we'll throw a nozzle in it for good measure. I'll next move on to checking the gantry equipment. Since mine is printed, I'll see that there's stress fractures in this tensioner, which we have another exciting project for moving forward. It's helpful to have a handheld vacuum. This $3 brush and dustpan works wonders. Now I'll also have a duster which I've stolen from my girlfriend. If you don't have one, get one, and by that I mean the duster. You're going to need the Q-tips for the hard to reach places, and this 3D print is extremely helpful. It's been provided by Need It Make It to clean the lead screws on your machine. With a little bit of IPA soaked paper towel placed within it, it clamps onto the lead screw and will clean out the threads. With that being said, I have a roll of paper towels and microfiber for cleaning, and my assortment of tools, which includes Allens for the printer's hardware, a belt tensioning meter, as well as a wrench of some sort to be able to remove the nozzle from the hot end. With a 3D printer toolkit, you'll typically receive a nozzle wrench that looks like so, or sometimes with an upgraded hot end, you'll receive a wrench for that specific setup. I use Mobil 1 Mobilux EP2 grease on my linear rail, which I placed in a syringe for easy application. You'll see that if I open up the tube, just how much fun you'll probably have if you stick your finger in there and try to wipe it on the rail itself. Yeah, we're going to avoid that, placing that down. I'm going to pick up my super loop, which I'll use on both the lead screws and the linear rods for my Z-axis. I like using this 3D printed adapter, which just screws onto the super loop tube. It hooks onto the lead screw and deposits lubrication through the two ports that were just shown. I also have some of the super lube in a syringe for the hard to reach places, like the rear Z-rod, which is sandwiched between the lead screw and the rear panel. With our inspection performed earlier, I've got my new nozzle, which is the Bondtech CHT collaboration for the Flowtech hot end, which I'll be matching against my Dragon Ace eventually. I've got a heat sock to replace the one that's damaged. And because I like to have spares of most items on hand, I've also got this print head cover that I had printed in some wet ABS, so excuse the stringing. If you're new to 3D printing, having consumables on hand is important and gets your printer back up and running quickly. I'll also keep a length of PTFE on hand just because it's a typical maintenance item. I like to put some isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle just because it's quick and convenient. If you're lubricating your lead screws with white lithium grease or your Z and Y rods with the machine grease that's included, by all means use it. The debris on the bottom of the chamber is a concern because if it ends up matted in with the lubrication on your lead screw, as the bed tries to make movement, it could cause blinding and potentially a failed print. So I'll remove most of the material with a $3 dustpan, thank you Home Goods, and then I'll go ahead and attack the remaining debris with my handheld vacuum to make sure everything is clean and clear. Notice how the chamber within the vacuum is completely clean prior to doing this process. Now, despite picking up the small pieces of debris, which you'll see collected here, I was also able to get some of the longer pieces that were in some hard to reach places. As I transition over to cleaning the lead screws on the machine, I'll wipe off any of the excess lubrication that's currently in place. This will assist in preventing the rod sloth, pushing all of that gunk to either the top or the bottom of the lead screw, and I'll perform this process on all three of the lead screws in the Creality K1. Beyond the lead screws, I'll also go ahead to clean the Z linear rods, and I'll try to make sure that the paper towel that I'm wiping it down with is clean so that I'm not working against myself. The rear Z lead screw and linear rod will be the hardest to reach out of the three. Now I'll prep this rod sloth for use by completely saturating my hand and partially saturating this paper towel before installing it in the rod sloth itself. I'll then clamp it down onto the lead screw, and don't forget step 1 if you want to dry out your skin. After homing the machine previously, I'm going to need to bring the bed down with the rod sloth in place. That way, all I have to do is make movement of the bed for the rod sloth to do its thing. Here you'll see just how well the rod sloth performed in cleaning the lead screw in preparation for relubrication. and despite cleaning a lot of the excess gunk off prior to performing this process, there may be a small amount that ended up below where the rod sloth would reach. I like to perform this process twice per lead screw, just so that I can get it in both ranges of movement, both down as well as up. So I'll saturate another piece of paper towel, place it above the bed mount, and then I'll run the bed up so that I can capture any of the remaining grease that I was unable to get on the first pass. The same process will be completed on the remaining lead screws, but for the right front, you'll have an obstruction of the auxiliary fan as it swings towards the right side panel, so you're going to want to maintain it with a finger, otherwise it will do something like this and potentially just pop off. So while maintaining the rod sloth, I'll run the bed up and then clean off any of the remaining lubrication on the bottom of the lead screw. As I move to the rear Z lead screw, you'll see I run into a few obstructions, one being the vent, and if you go too low, you've got the motor for Z. And going up, you've got the exhaust fan on the left-hand side. When you lower the bed, the rod sloth is going to want to swing to the right, whereas if you raise the bed, it's going to want to swing to the left. So maintain the rod sloth as it goes through that range of motion. The next step is to clean the linear rod behind the lead screw, which is a little more difficult than the front, but it is possible. I'll do that on both the portions below and above the bed, and then I'll grab a Q-tip applicator to get those hard to reach places surrounding the lead screw and Z-rods, as those will be for the coupler and the bearing. You'll perform this same cleaning process on the underside of each of the 3 bed mounts, get any of the remaining contaminated lubrication that remains. With all of that equipment cleaned and prepped for lubrication, we can grab our super lube tube with the 3D printed adapter, hook it around the lead screws, and get the appropriate amount of lubrication on each. Now, after running the bed both up and down, you'll see that there's a collection of super lube on the coupler of the right front lead screw. It's because I applied slightly too much, but I'll apply it to another lead screw that didn't have much at all, just so I can make use of it. And then I'll take another Q-tip and clean off any that remain so that we got some nice clean bed mounts. I'll then take my super lube in a tube and I'll place it on the linear rod. You only need a little bit. There's too much on this one. That's my fault entirely. So I'll place a little bit less on each of the remaining linear rods. Now I'll use a Q-tip to try to get it around the entire surface of the rod. Although the lead screws have the ability to move the lubrication into the threads during its range of movement, the linear rods do not. So you're going to try to do your best to surround the surface area of the rod, and then you'll clean off any of the remaining lubricant. Printers do not like dust, so if you see any in the process, just make sure to clean it. Now we're ready to move on to our X-axis, so I'll take my microfiber, get a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on there, and then making sure that I've got a clean piece of the microfiber with each pass, I'll be able to determine the amount of contamination that remains. Moving the print head to the opposing side, I'll expose the area that had previously been covered and make sure to clean that as well. It is important to clean the groove on both the back as well as the front of the linear rail, because this is where the bearings for the H-block that your print head is attached to run within. I'll next grab the syringe with the Mobilux EP2, attach a needle tip, and then go ahead and apply it within each of the grooves, both on the front as well as the rear, making sure to move the print head so that I can hit any of the locations that were previously covered. Keep in mind the appropriate process is to remove the print head and pack the bearings with grease by using one of the openings on the linear rail underneath. For the X-axis on the factory setup, the best suggestion would be to clean with isopropyl and apply some graphite powder. Now I'll move on to my Y-rods, which I'll go ahead and include this EP2 grease on again, just because I've packed these LMA LOUs with it in the past, and I'll make sure that there's free range of motion with no resistance in all directions. We're ready to move on to the hardware check, and the grub screws on the linear rods for this gantry will be the first that I go ahead to inspect. With the 4 grub screw locations sufficiently tight, I'll move on to the rear motor mounts, and I'll use the 3-finger approach on this to make sure that I'm not over tightening any of the pieces of hardware. Front 2 screws for each of the motor mounts will be easiest to access. For the inner rear, you can use an Allen key, but unless you remove the top frame, you won't be able to get to the one closest to the frame itself. I will cover the top frame removal so you can access that hardware during the gantry squaring video that I plan to release in the not so distant future. I'll then check the motor pulleys and make sure that the grub screws are secured on each, and once they're tight, I'll move on to the print head. The lowermost screw is for the print head cover, the one directly above it is to secure the heatsink, and the 2 in the uppermost portion of the print head are to secure the extruder. Now let's slide this over. Taking a look at the other side, it's going to match with the print head cover screw, the heatsink screw, but there will only be one specific to the extruder in the upper portion. This hardware arrangement remains the same for a factory or the Bootycall Jones linear rail gantry print head. Since the print head cover has melted and requires replacement, I'll remove the 2 M3 screws that secure it to the carriage. You'll see that the only thing that's left is the connection for the fan on the printhead board itself. Taking a look at that printhead cover, it has seen better days. I'm going to turn the printer off so I can disconnect the fan, and we'll move over to the workbench so that we can swap the fan from one cover to the next. This is going to be a 2mm Allen, and it is utilizing the factory coarse thread screws that were in the original printhead cover. Taking a look at it, you'll see that it's nothing special. It's just going to drive itself into the plastic of the 3 holes that will be positioned above. You're going to want to make sure that the cable for the fan isn't getting pinched in this process and is freely moving. I'll make use of this time while the printhead cover is off to have easy access to the heat sock so I can remove it and be mindful of the 2 wings that seat above the wires for both the heater and thermistor. I don't want to yank on those and potentially damage or pull out either. We'll also go ahead to take out the nozzle to replace it with the new unit. And you'll see that the Micro Swiss Flowtech hot end is relatively loose. What secures it in position is the top portion of that nozzle. But while we've got access to the 2 titanium screws that the Flowtech hot end hangs on, we'll make sure that those are nice and tight as well. I'm really excited to see what this Bondtech CHD nozzle is capable of. With the 3-port system within the nozzle, it should help to increase flow, and it'll also be interesting to match that against the Dragon Ace performance. Since I'm not a believer of swapping nozzles while cold, I've heated up the hot end to 200 degrees Celsius to account for thermal expansion, making sure that the threads are properly seated. I'll then go ahead to install the heat sock that we have. Make sure that the 2 wings make their way over the 2 wires that they'll sit above. Also make sure that the cups for each of those titanium screws is properly secured. Taking advantage of this time while the printhead cover is off, I'll go ahead to check the 3 screws that secure the printhead board, as well as the 2 screws for the cable clip directly above it. With all of that hardware checked, I'll go ahead to remove the 2 screws on the right hand side of the carriage for the extruder, and the one on the opposing side. The reason that I'll go ahead to remove the extruder itself is to ensure that the 2 pieces of hardware that secure the casing are nice and tight. It also allows me to access the M3 screws that secure the printhead carriage to the linear rail or the H block. This is just an additional measure that I take to ensure that the hardware in the printhead carriage is all tight so that it doesn't introduce vibrations, increase resonance, and decrease the quality of the input shaping graphs that you'll receive. I'll loosely install the 3 pieces of hardware for the extruder and then cinch them in place once I know that they've got proper threading. I'll check the heatsink screws on either side of the carriage, and I'll also check the hardware for the brackets securing the belts to the printhead carriage itself. It's important not to over tighten these as the wings on them are very brittle. They can either spread or break off. Now it's time to reinstall our printhead cover. First I'll start by connecting it before getting the 2 M3 screws back in place. Moving on to the PTFE replacement, I'm going to unclip it from the wire sheath or wire loom that I've placed around the printhead board power cable, and I'll give you a quick look at the teeth marks that are caused by the extruder coupler. In order to replace the appropriate length, I take the existing tubing with my new PTFE directly alongside so that I can match it exactly. I'll then take some PTFE or batten tubing cutters and get a nice flush cut on the PTFE overall. Once that's complete, I'll make the same routing, following that wiring loom to provide the support that you see here, and then I'll zip tie it off so that it's properly secured. It is important to make sure that your belts are appropriately tensioned to produce the best quality output of your prints overall, and for that I've got this kit from West 3D, which was designed by PF Makes. I'll first start by checking to make sure that the tool is properly calibrated, and by putting this gauge wire within the actual tester, I'll see that it sits at approximately 1.8. This gauge of wire should be producing results of 1.9, so I'll go back to recalibrate until I get a good result that matches what I'm looking for. While checking tension, the process requires the printhead to be at 150 millimeters on the y-axis, and I'll place the tension meter in the middle of the belt so that I can get an accurate reading on its current status. Because I had good reading on both belts and they held similarity, I'll just show that if you need to make tension adjustments on the Bootycall Jones linear rail gantry, you'll place it on the hardware in the front tensioners. As a personal preference, I'll shoot for a value of 2.4 when using the West 3D PF Makes belt tension meter. If you're still in factory configuration, you'll perform a separate tensioning process utilizing the tensioners at the rear. Now we'll clean up the bed as well as the printer to get rid of that nasty haze that's on the front glass, which, depending on the amount of the buildup due to the materials that you're printing, may require for you to wipe it down once more. Then I'll transition to the outside of the machine, making sure to get the panels on both sides after already wiping down the inside panels, which isn't a glorious process, so it's not included here. But the top lid will require for the same wipe down process to be completed, and I'll perform that on both the inside as well as the outside before putting it back in place. Now you can grab your duster, hitting all of the external horizontal surfaces where dust may have settled over time. An alternative to this is soaking some paper towels in isopropyl alcohol and giving it a wipe down so that you can not only clean, but with the wet paper towel pick up any dust. I prefer using a duster on the screen. Now you've got a happy little K1. Now this isn't end all be all in terms of maintaining your printer, so I encourage you to go out and research to see if there's anything that you'd like to add. But if you enjoyed this video and there was a piece of information that helped you in your process of maintaining a K1, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Till then, happy printing.